Hello everyone. I am the narrator, and this is A Tale After Midnight. Now before we continue, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from? And what time is it when you're watching this? Comment down below. Now relax and get comfortable. Layla Roth clutched the brass key in her hand, its teeth biting into her palm as she stared up at the graystone boarding house. It looked older than it had in the listing. Vines crawled up the brick like veins, and the window frame sagged as though the house was tired of watching the world go by. The landlady, Mrs. Coldwell, was already waiting at the entrance. She was tall, stern, and dressed in layers of knit sweaters, even though the air still clung to the last warmth of September. "Room 3F, she said without introduction, holding out a manila envelope. "Respect the walls. Don't run water after 2:33 a.m. And keep your curtains closed at night." Layla blinked. "Okay. Is there a reason for that last one?" Mrs. Coldwell tilted her head. Her eyes were a watery gray. "This house listens. Some things echo through the glass." The statement sat between them like a heavy book. Layla offered a nervous laugh. "I'll be quiet, I promise." The woman didn't laugh back. Her room was on the third floor at the very end of the hallway. It was narrow, with a slanted ceiling and a single tall window at the back. A rust-colored armchair sat by the window, and dust floated like mist through the air. Layla dropped her duffel bag on the bed and walked straight to the window. Outside was a weedy lot. A rusted chain-link fence surrounded it, and beyond that, an old building stood in shadow, tall, abandoned, and watching. She tugged at the sash. It wouldn't budge. Then she noticed something strange. The window was painted shut, but not with the usual care. Black paint, thick and gloppy, sealed the corners. Weird. She turned away and began unpacking, pretending she hadn't noticed the faint whisper that seemed to curl beneath the wood as she did. The first whisper came on the third night. Layla was writing in her journal, the scratch of pen filling the silence, when a flicker of cold air brushed past her ear. She froze. Her heater was off. The door was shut. She looked toward the window. Curtains drawn. Still. Then came the voice. Soft. Feminine. Fractured like it was slipping through water. "Don't look." Layla's pen fell from her hand. She stood slowly, her feet bare against the creaky floorboards. With each step toward the window, the voice returned. "Please, don't look." "Who's there?" she whispered. No answer. Just the sound of breathing, a strange rhythmic draft that matched the beat of her heart. She flung open the curtains. Nothing. Just the lot. The trees. The fence. And beyond that, the old, abandoned building, still in shadow. The window was ice-cold to the touch. She pressed her palm against it. The paint sealing the frame had begun to crack. And from the other side, she swore something pressed back. The next morning, Layla examined the window in the pale light of dawn. The paint had split along one corner, a jagged line like a lightning bolt. She tapped it gently. The pane rattled in its frame. She turned from the window and nearly jumped out of her skin. Mrs. Coldwell was standing in her doorway. "You opened the curtain," the woman said flatly. Layla blinked. How did you?" "I heard it." A silence passed. "Did you see it?" Mrs. Coldwell asked, voice low. Layla frowned. "See what?" There was nothing there. Just the lot. The building. Mrs. Coldwell nodded as if that confirmed something. "It doesn't show itself to everyone." "Not at first." Layla rubbed her arms. The room felt colder than before. "Listen carefully, Miss Roth. There are 3 rules you must follow if you want to stay in this house." She listed them off with fingers that looked older than her face. 1. Never open the window. Not even a crack. 2. Keep the curtains drawn after sunset. And 3. No mirrors facing the glass. Ever. Layla blinked. Mirrors? Mrs. Coldwell gave a hollow smile. It likes reflections. That night, Layla couldn't stop thinking about the third rule. She didn't own many mirrors, just a small circular one she used on her desk for makeup. But the window, something about it made her nervous now. She moved the mirror into the drawer and shut it tight. Still, as she lay in bed, sleep refused to come. The room was quiet, too quiet. Her ears strained to hear something, anything, that would ground her. Instead, she heard only the soft whisper of air curling beneath the windowpane. And then, "I see you." She shot up. Nothing moved. The curtains were closed. But the whisper wasn't muffled this time. It was close. "I see you. Layla." Her blood ran cold. She stood and tiptoed to the window, heart hammering in her chest. Slowly, she reached for the curtain. Paused. A sudden knock at the door startled her. She spun around. "Hello?" "It's Mrs. Coldwell," came the voice. "Don't open the curtain. Not tonight." Layla hesitated, then stepped back from the window. When she opened the door, the hallway was empty. No footsteps. No sign of the landlady. Only silence. And behind her, on the floor near the window, just barely visible beneath the curtain's hem, a dark smear, like a handprint made in ash. The smell came next. At first, it was faint, like someone lighting a match too close to the skin. Sharp, acrid, and fleeting. But it lingered longer each night, like something had been singed just beneath the floorboards. Layla tried to ignore it. She opened windows downstairs during the day and bought scented candles. Lavender, vanilla, anything to mask the creeping scent of smoke. But nothing helped. At night, the air thickened. And the whispers grew bolder. "He's coming back." She opened the window. "It's almost time." They were no longer isolated phrases. They came in streams, cascading through her mind like water spilling into a room. She started keeping a notebook by the bed just to jot them down. Some made no sense at all. 7 windows, 7 watchers. Don't answer when it knocks twice. When the mirror bleeds, it's too late. One night, she found a new sentence scrawled in her own handwriting, though she had no memory of writing it. "Let it in." Her hands trembled. She tore out the page and burned it in the bathroom sink. The flame flickered blue. The scent of smoke never left. Layla stayed awake until sunrise. Sleep had become treacherous. She would drift into half-dreams and wake suddenly, sure, someone was standing at the foot of her bed. But no one was ever there. Just the soft swish of the curtains in the still air. She started keeping her lights on at night, but that didn't help. The shadows moved differently now, like they had intention. The corner by the window remained impossibly dark no matter how many bulbs she replaced. One night, just past 3 a.m., she heard it again, a knock. Then a second. Not at her door. At the window. Her body locked up. The curtains were drawn. She hadn't touched them since the ash handprint appeared. The knock came again. Slow. Measured. Deliberate. She tiptoed closer, heart hammering in her throat. It was ridiculous, she told herself. Just the wind. Or a tree branch. She reached for the curtain. And then. Knock. Knock. Don't answer when it knocks twice. The words from her notebook screamed back into her mind. She stepped back. Trembling. Breath short. Then something else joined the knocks. A scraping. A long, agonizing drag of fingernails along the outside of the window. The sound went on for nearly a minute. And then it stopped. When she finally dared to peek out the curtain at sunrise, she saw nothing. But the black paint sealing the window? Now there were 3 long scratches through it. Scratches that hadn't been there before. The house had changed. Layla began to hear voices even when she wasn't near the window. Echoes drifted down the hallways. She'd pause at the top of the stairs and swear she could hear children laughing. But the house was for adults only. Mrs. Coldwell was very clear about that. One evening, she found a crumpled photograph tucked behind the radiator. It showed a little girl sitting in the armchair by the window in Layla's room. The girl's face was blurred by time, but her hand was pressed to the glass. On the back, scrawled in smudged ink. She opened it. We couldn't stop her. That night, footsteps echoed outside her door. She watched the shadow pass beneath it, a small figure, no taller than a child. She didn't open the door. Not even when it whispered her name in a voice far too sweet to belong to anyone living. The house had changed. Layla began to hear voices even when she wasn't near the window. Echoes drifted down the hallways. She'd pause at the top of the stairs and swear she could hear children laughing. But the house was for adults only. Mrs. Coldwell was very clear about that. One evening, she found a crumpled photograph tucked behind the radiator. It showed a little girl sitting in the armchair by the window in Layla's room. The girl's face was blurred by time, but her hand was pressed to the glass. On the back, scrawled in smudged ink. She opened it. We couldn't stop her. That night, footsteps echoed outside her door. She watched the shadow pass beneath it. A small figure, no taller than a child. She didn't open the door. Not even when it whispered her name in a voice far too sweet to belong to anyone living. One morning, the mirror she had buried in her drawer was back on the desk. She hadn't put it there. The reflective surface was warped now, like water frozen mid-ripple. When she picked it up, her own reflection didn't move right. It blinked too slow. The smile was half a second late. Layla wrapped the mirror in a towel and shoved it into the wardrobe. But that night, she heard a sound. Crack. She flicked on the light. The wardrobe door was ajar. Crack. The mirror was back on the desk. A fracture now ran down its center, and on the wall behind her reflected form, something moved. She spun around. Nothing there. The crack had spread by morning. The mirror bled silver at the edges, like it was weeping mercury. Mrs. Coldwell refused to enter the room. When Layla demanded to know what was going on, the woman only muttered. Too late to hide from it now. You've been seen. Desperate for answers, Layla searched the boarding house. One afternoon while the landlady was out, she picked the lock to Mrs. Coldwell's office. Stacks of yellowed paper and boxes of photos filled the room, but one thing stood out, a leather-bound journal, nearly falling apart. Inside were entries going back over 50 years. And names, dozens of them. Borders, each marked with dates of arrival, and then a single word, disappeared. Underlined in red ink. One entry chilled her blood. Layla Roth. Young. Curious. Heard it whispering on the first night. Drawn to the window. Already too late. It was dated 3 days before she moved in. The final line was scrawled at the bottom. It doesn't wait anymore. On the 10th night, the window opened by itself. Layla woke to a sound like glass breathing. Cold air pooled at her feet. The curtain swayed, and behind it, the black paint had peeled entirely away. The window, once sealed, jammed tight, now stood open a hand's width. She didn't scream. She couldn't. There was something outside. Not visible. A shape outlined in frost. Just standing there beyond the screen of night. Watching. And then it stepped closer. Layla slammed the window shut and threw the lock. The figure didn't vanish. It only drifted back into the dark like mist curling around a tree. She backed away, whispering, "It's not real. It's not real." But she already knew it was. Because when she looked down at her hands, they were coated in black, old, tar-like paint from the frame. Except she hadn't touched it. It had touched her. Layla couldn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, the tar-like paint still smeared faintly on her palms. She washed and scrubbed, but the stain refused to fade. A sudden chill swept through the room, and the shadows in the corner thickened. "Layla." The whisper was low, distant, but unmistakably there. Her breath caught. "Who's there?" No answer. Instead, the air shifted, carrying the faint scent of smoke and cold earth. She saw it then, at the edge of the room. A figure, translucent but solid enough to cast a faint shadow. The shape of a woman, her face pale and eyes hollow. Layla's voice barely rose. "What do you want?" The figure pointed at the window, then slowly faded into the darkness. Layla rushed to the window. The paint was intact again, but the cold seemed to seep into the room itself. She felt watched. And she was running out of time. The next morning, Layla woke to find words written on the wall in what looked like smoke residue. "Do not open. It waits beyond. Only shadows remain. They are coming. Remember the rules." Layla stared, trembling. Who, or what, had written this? And why? She called Mrs. Coldwell, demanding answers. "You were warned," the landlady said, voice steady but grave. "The window is a door." A door to what? To what used to live here. To what was trapped. Layla spent the day trying to piece together what Mrs. Coldwell had told her. The window wasn't just a window. It was a door, one that had been sealed for decades to keep something trapped inside. Something that was now waking. Her mind raced with questions as she paced the small room. The sunlight struggled to pierce the grime on the window. Yet the outside world felt distant, almost unreachable. That night, the house spoke louder. Whispers slipped through the cracks in the walls, curling into her ears like smoke. The words were fragmented, but chilling. "Free, help us, trapped, door, blood." The walls seemed to pulse with a cold breath. Layla pressed her hands against the plaster, her fingers tracing invisible paths where the voices felt strongest. A sudden thud shook the floorboards below, followed by dragging noises, slow, deliberate, and agonizing. "Not safe, not safe," the voices moaned. Layla's heart pounded, her body frozen in fear. She wanted to flee but felt rooted to the spot, trapped by the house itself. Determined to find answers, Layla explored the boarding house during the day, looking for anything she might have missed. In the basement, behind a cracked wooden panel, she discovered a narrow staircase leading down further than the known cellar. The air grew thick with dust and the metallic scent of rust. At the bottom, a small chamber, barely bigger than a closet, held remnants of old belongings, a child's doll missing an eye, a tattered dress, and a cracked porcelain plate with a deep red stain. On the walls, scratches carved in a trembling hand read, "Help me. The window watches." Layla shivered. She was not alone. That night, Layla barricaded her door with a heavy chair, her hands trembling as she placed it in front of the handle. The house felt alive, breathing, waiting. The whispers turned to wails, echoing from the walls and ceiling. The temperature dropped, and her breath fogged in the icy air. Suddenly, a shadow passed beneath the window, elongated and flickering like a flame. Layla's heart froze. The armchair by the window, the very same one from the photograph, began to creak as if someone had sat down. Layla's eyes darted toward it. The silhouette of the little girl appeared, pale and transparent, fingers pressed to the glass. "Help me," the ghostly child whispered, voice thin and desperate. Layla wanted to scream but found her voice caught in her throat. The window rattled, and the black paint began to peel like dead skin. Determined to protect herself, Layla confronted Mrs. Coldwell the next morning. The landlady's usual stern expression softened, revealing years of sorrow. "There was a fire," Mrs. Coldwell began, voice shaking. "Decades ago, a family lived here, a mother and her daughter. The girl was trapped in the room by the window during the blaze. The mother tried to save her but was pulled away. The window was sealed to keep whatever took her inside, but it never stopped calling." Layla's skin prickled. "Calling for what?" "The house is a vessel for restless souls," Mrs. Coldwell said, voice barely a whisper. "And some doors are meant to stay shut." Layla's mind spun as Mrs. Coldwell's words sank in. The past was more tragic than she had imagined, and the house held secrets dark and deep. That evening, Layla sat by the window again, trying to steel herself. As night fell, she felt the temperature drop rapidly. The familiar whispers rose to a cacophony of voices, desperate and pleading. Suddenly, flames flickered behind the glass, not real fire, but something alive, burning cold. Layla pressed her palm against the windowpane. The glass rippled like water. From the other side, a hand reached out, thin and charred, its fingers grasping. Layla jerked back, gasping. The window slammed shut with a thunderous bang, and the flames vanished. She sank to the floor, tears streaming. She whispered, "I'll help you. I swear." Mrs. Coldwell handed Layla a fragile, ancient book wrapped in leather. The cover was cracked, and symbols etched deep. "This is the ritual of the sealed," the landlady explained. "It's the only way to free the souls trapped inside, but it's dangerous. The window's power will fight back." Layla nodded, determination hardening her features. She spent days preparing, learning the incantations and gathering rare herbs and candles from the village apothecary. As the night of the ritual approached, the house's energy shifted. The shadows deepened, and the whispers became frantic. Layla lit the candles and opened the book, her voice trembling as she began the chant. The window glowed faintly, then brightened, like a gateway. Something cold pressed against the glass from the other side. As Layla chanted the ancient words, the air grew thick with electricity. The flames from the candles flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows that writhed on the walls like living creatures. The window's glow intensified, bathing the room in an eerie pale light. Outside, the shape of the little girl emerged again, her translucent form pressed against the glass, eyes pleading. Suddenly, the glass began to crack along its edges, splintering like fragile ice. Layla's voice grew louder, her resolve fierce despite the fear gnawing at her heart. Then, a deafening crack shattered the silence. The window burst open, sending shards of glass flying across the room. A freezing gust rushed in, extinguishing the candles and swallowing Layla in darkness. A voice echoed in her mind. "Freedom, at last." Morning light crept through the ruined window frame. Layla lay on the floor, shaken but alive. The room was silent. The oppressive cold had lifted. Mrs. Coldwell appeared at the doorway, her eyes wide but relieved. "The souls are free," she whispered. Layla looked toward the empty window, the black paint gone, the glass shattered. The house no longer whispered.